Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining this afternoon's presentation here at Mann Travels. We're bringing back Barry Johnston, our friend and travel partner with Viking Cruises. He's actually going to do an encore presentation with Mississippi River cruising and Great Lakes expedition cruising. And even though, we still can't travel right now, we still want to dream about it. And that's why we're here. We're hoping to be able to provide you with some great destinations and travel opportunities to help inspire you, because I think we all need a little bit of inspiration these days. So Barry, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Oh, thanks so much, Billy. And thank you everyone who's joining us. We're really glad that you've joined us to hear about Viking, Mississippi and our Viking Great Lakes cruising with our great travel partners at Mann Travels. So they're wonderful representatives. They know Viking in and out. They're best of the best. They'll take wonderful care of you. So recommend that you reach out to them for any questions about itineraries or pricing, to your travel advisor of choice, and they'll be glad to help you. So let's jump right in. We won't be very sensitive to your time and won't keep you too long today. We'll talk for around 20, 25 minutes most. So the Mississippi River, we've talked about this for many years at Viking and it's finally at fruition. So we launched it around the beginning of April. It will be for 2022 sailings. So we have 2022 and into 2023 that are available to booking now. And we'll be traveling an entire 10-state region of the Mississippi, touching on St. Paul all the way down to New Orleans. So a huge stretch there, a fantastic river that has so much nature, culture, and history that's important to the United States. We have 4 different itineraries, 3 8-day and 1 15-day voyage. And we'll be visiting small towns, large towns, national monuments, museums along the way. The Viking difference, everything that we do at Viking, if you've been on one of our Viking River cruises or our Viking Ocean cruises, you know this. If you're new to Viking, hopefully you've talked to someone who has traveled with us and they will tell you what that difference really is. It's about the destination. We spend more time in destination. Everything that you experience on board and ashore is about the destination, and it's all put together for that purpose. We've had the same motto for all 22 years at Viking, and that's cruising the world in comfort, and we'll be doing the exact same here in the United States when we begin sailing the Mississippi in 2022. So our philosophy is not to be everything to everyone. We are adults only, English speaking, mature couples. Our passengers come from the United States and Canada primarily, 88% from here in North America, the US and Canada. And then we have 10% of our passengers from the United Kingdom and 2% from Australia and New Zealand. So you'll be traveling with people who are similar, who are English speaking, and from those 3 origins is where our passengers come from. It's about the destination, highly inclusive product, that fantastic, the savings that we'll pass on to you from economy of scale point of view, because we are a river cruise line in Europe, an ocean cruise line as well. It all passes on some wonderful savings to you compared to some of the other products that are going to be available or are already sailing on the Mississippi. We hire a wonderful staff too, and they'll take great care of you on board. You can see our ship is very modern. It is a Scandinavian design element on board, which all that means is bringing light and air and the woods indoors, forest indoors. So you see a lot of wood elements around the ship. You'll see floor-to-ceiling windows, light colored paints to make everything feel light and airy. It is modern Mississippi exploration. We'll have destination-focused dining too. We'll have wonderful recipes from the regions that you're traveling from along the Mississippi, whether that's jambalaya or Creole food there in the south, or more taste for the north when we're up in St. Paul and the Scandinavian ethnic heritage of the Minnesota region. And just great service. Our staff will be Americans on board, but we will have Swiss training. Our base of operations is in Basel, Switzerland. So our staff there will be conducting all of the training for our staff to make sure that they know the Viking way and you're taken care of in the way that you're used to experiencing on Viking around the world. So let's talk about some onshore experiences and some of the things that you'll do with Viking. We call it the Viking way. It's local life, working world, privileged access. It's a way for you to go beyond the expected and experience more. So these are some sample excursions that you'll be able to do. So a few of these are included excursions, a few of these are optional excursions, but just gives you a taste of what you can experience on these 4 itineraries that will be offered, whether that's visiting local life in the John Deere Pavilion when we're in Iowa, whether it's visiting restaurant 1818 in Natchez, Mississippi, and sampling Southern creations of cocktails and lunch, whether it's Working World and an Iowa dairy farm, or going to Anheuser-Busch, the brewery there in St. Louis, one of America's oldest breweries. It could be the Rural Life Museum in Arcadia, Mississippi, which is a Cajun cultural living history experience with music, folktales, and food, or the Norwegian immigrant experience at the Vesterheim, which is the National Norwegian American Museum that we're visiting on our northern itinerary. Let's go through all of the included values so you're familiar with what you'll have on board. There's one short excursion in each port of call led by a local knowledgeable guide. All of your onboard meals on the Viking Mississippi ship are included. We'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Wine, beer, and soft drinks included during lunch and dinner as well. Specialty coffees, teas available 24 hours. Complimentary Wi-Fi so you can remain connected. All port charges and government taxes are included too. Now the destination in an itinerary overview. So let's talk about the areas we're going to travel into. I love this slide. This shows you a map of the Mississippi, and you can see our 4 itineraries and when we'll be traveling them from south to north. We'll start from Southern Celebration. We'll do that in the December to January time period. It'll be a round trip out of New Orleans. We'll do Heart of Delta, which will be a one-way, either Memphis to New Orleans or New Orleans to Memphis. That'll be the January to mid-June timeframe, mid-October to November timeframe. America's Great River is going to be our 15-day. That's the full St. Paul to New Orleans or New Orleans to St. Paul. We'll be doing that in the mid-June and then again mid-September to mid-October timeframes each year. And then America's Heartland is the 8-day that does St. Louis to St. Paul. We'll be doing that mid-July to mid-September timeframe. And here they are all on a map, just so you can see from day to day. We won't go through each of these. I'll let you read this off as we go. This is that Southern Celebration. This one does feature one nice bonus. It's an overnight in New Orleans. So you do get to spend more time in that beautiful port of call there of New Orleans to experience more of the great food, music, and experiences that can be found there. But going all the way up to Vicksburg and coming back down to Baton Rouge and New Orleans on this 8-day itinerary. Heart of the Delta is that one-way, either New Orleans to Memphis or Memphis to New Orleans. And you can see we're stopping in Natchez, Vicksburg, one scenic day of cruising on this on day 7, Baton Rouge as well, and Darrow, Louisiana. America's Heartland is the St. Louis to St. Paul 8-day. Hannibal, Missouri, Burlington, Iowa, Quad Cities, Dubuque, La Crosse, Wisconsin, Red Wing, Minnesota, and St. Paul. And this will go in either direction too. You'll do St. Paul to St. Louis or St. Louis to St. Paul. And our America's Great River is the ultimate. This is the 15-day, 11 guided tours, St. Paul all the way to New Orleans to St. Paul. We'll touch on a couple of the cities that you'll see on this itinerary. Here it is on a map, that full experience, the St. Paul to New Orleans. It is St. Paul, Minnesota. Let's start a starting point there. A beautiful city here. This will be your embarkation day if you're doing the 15-day or if you're doing the 8-day. That's the northern itinerary there. It has quite a bit of Norwegian, Scandinavian heritage here, so lots of wonderful restaurants. This is the capital, one of the spots that you can visit here on that embarkation day when you're in St. Paul. Quad Cities, Iowa, of course, the John Deere tractor that you see. We will be visiting the John Deere Pavilion. It gives a history of that company that's been making farming equipment for Americans for over 150 years now. And there'll be samples of the equipment that they made over the years. They're in the pavilion, as well as 3 buildings that are on the National Register of Historic Places. Hannibal, Missouri will be a stop on the upper itineraries, and on our 15-day, it is the birthplace of Mark Twain. We'll be visiting his home, which is the home he was born in, as well as you'll see that picket fence that he painted as a child, and Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer statues here, probably some Mark Twain impersonators around town. Everything in Hannibal has a Mark Twain feel to it. So that's what our experience will be that entire day in Hannibal. Then on to St. Louis, Missouri. This will be it will be a port of call if you're on the 15-day. It would be your starting point if you're doing an America's Heartland, or your debarkation point if you're ending in St. Louis. A great city here, lots of history and relating to the westward expansion of our country. So even the exploration, the Oregon Trail, settlers who are heading out to Oregon, Colorado, California, Utah, many passed through St. Louis. The Gateway Arch there is a memorial to all those people who passed through the city on their way out west. And on that 15-day, we'll have included tours that will take you around the city to the Gateway Arch, and optional tours of the brewery if you'd like to visit Anheuser-Busch. Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee is going to be either a port of call on our 15-day, or it will be a port of call or it will be our embarkation or debarkation point if you're doing one of our southern itineraries there that starts and ends here. Lots to explore here. If you're doing one of this is a port of call for you on that 15-day. We'll have an included tour of Graceland, so you'll get to see Elvis's mansion and a lot of his memorabilia. Of course, there's Beale Street to explore, fantastic barbecue. They serve their barbecue wet there in Memphis, so lots of heavy sauce on it. So you'll enjoy that. Oh, I'm sorry, I got that backwards from St. Louis. It's actually dry in Memphis. I've been to both, and so I sometimes get confused. It's going to be dry here in Memphis. But a nice dry rub that you'll enjoy on those ribs. Then Vicksburg, day 12. Lots of, this is the day 12 on the 15-day. A wonderful, so much history tied to the Civil War here. This was a very important battle that was fought around the same time as Gettysburg. We all know about Gettysburg being a turning point for the Civil War, but this was a several months long siege that culminated in a battle there. And Grant finally sieged Vicksburg and divided the Confederacy in two. So the North controlled the entire Mississippi River once they held Vicksburg. It was very important for a turning point to the war. So we'll be visiting the battlefield on our tour here, as well as some of the historic homes. There'll be some optional tours that you can do that'll walk right from the port right into Vicksburg to see the beautiful antebellum homes there. And then finally, New Orleans, so much great food and museums and music here. If you're a fan of World War II, you'll definitely want to visit the National World War II Museum that's in New Orleans. It's one of the best in the country. It is a fantastic spot that you'd like to visit. We have pre and posts available too for the Mississippi River. We have one night pre in every starting port of call, and we'll have 2 and 3 night pre and post that will be hosted with the Viking guests to give you more experience into those cities that you'll be visiting at the beginning and end of your tour. Now let's go through the ship. The ship is gorgeous, brand new, under construction, being built here in the US. You can see a very modern vessel. You see this on the screen now. So we have 5 total decks. The first deck, the bottom deck that you see there, is going to have a lot of public spaces. Our main restaurant, our living room, our explorer's lounge, all on the first deck, then passenger cabins on deck 2, 3, and 4. And then on our 5th deck, the top deck, we have some public spaces at the rear, halfway point to the rear, and then a few cabins up at the front. So let's take a quick tour of the ship. Again, no paddle wheel on this, very modern vessel and a wonderful way to travel on the Mississippi. We'll have some excerpts from Mark Twain's work on the stairs. As you traverse up and down, you can read some of Mark Twain's works. Very memorable experience. And we all tie the Mississippi into reading Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and those adventures. The restaurant will be open kitchen concept with multiple rooms, a wonderful food that's regional based as well as American classics, depending on what region of the river you're traveling through. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner will be available here in the restaurant. We do have multiple dining venues. We'll get to our second dining venue in just a moment when we get up to the top of the ship. Our living room space is on that first deck, and it is forward. And the living room is going to be multifunctional. There's going to be 24-hour coffees here. There will be snacks throughout the day. We'll be doing lectures, cooking demonstrations, musical performances. We'll have musical groups from offshore come on board to perform for you. There's so much music tied to each city and different types as we go up and down the river. There'll be performances here in the living room. There is another view of the living room. So floor to ceiling windows on either side of the living room too, so you'll have beautiful views of the river and landscape. Up on the fifth deck now, up on that top deck, we have our River Cafe. The River Cafe is going to flow into our Aquavit Terrace. This will be an area we can enclose a portion of this. On wonderful weather days, we'll have it open like this. It will be al fresco dining. And this will include, this will be a second location for dining. You can go to either spot, the River Cafe or the restaurant for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And you'll see there's indoor seating here. We'll have doorways and windows that we can open to make this al fresco. It'll flow out to our Aquavit Terrace and a grill space here that we'll be utilizing for our meals, and then into outdoor seating beyond that too, completely outdoor here. And then beyond the Aquavit Terrace, we flow into our sun deck and lounge spot, and also an infinity plunge pool at the rear of the ship. So this would be a wonderful spot to jump in and cool off. You can see there is a bench built into the pool, so you can sit down and enjoy the view off the rear of the top deck of the ship as we're traveling up or down the river. Back down on deck one, we're in the Explorer's Lounge now too, one of my favorite spots on our ocean vessels. This has a very familiar feel to it. We have 2 levels in our Explorer's Lounge. There'll be entertainment here. You can see a grand piano and this artist rendering back in the background there. So a wonderful bar area, great space to grab a drink and talk with new friends or old friends that you may be traveling with, people you've met on board as new friends, about the day and your experiences. Here's an artist rendering of the upper section of that Explorer's Lounge and what it may look like in the evening. These floor to ceiling windows allow beautiful gazing out into the evening sky. And finally, the bow, the last section of the ship we'll talk about as far as public spaces. This is out forward of the Explorer's Lounge, another wonderful spot to just sit down and enjoy views on an al fresco outdoor section of the ship. Our cabins on board are modeled after our award-winning Viking ocean staterooms, so be very familiar to you if you've traveled with us on our ocean ships. There are 2 new stateroom categories for the Mississippi, and every stateroom features a veranda or a French balcony with spacious bathrooms. All cabins are exterior-facing staterooms, so there are no interior cabins on board. We'll quickly go through those. Our French balcony staterooms are also our ADA cabins, our American Disabilities Act accessible cabins. There are 8 of these on board, 301 square feet. A really nice cabin with a French balcony. So that sliding glass door will move over and you can make your cabin open air and look out the balcony there. Next categories are the veranda and deluxe veranda. This will be the majority of the cabins. We have passengers, 378 passengers. I'm sorry, 386 passengers, 386. We have 2 ships that are very similar size. So 386 passengers on the Viking Mississippi. 128 rooms will be this category. This is the veranda and deluxe veranda, 268 square feet. Next category, a little bit larger, our penthouse veranda, 324 square feet. So just well acquainted with the Scandinavian design elements too. The next category beyond that is our penthouse junior suite, 400 square feet. So you see an expanded sitting area, a larger full walkout veranda here. Our terrace suites, I really love this cabin. This is something new. This is a cabin we don't have on our ocean vessels. It is kind of a longer cabin. Up on deck 5 there, you see the long veranda, 425 square feet. It has a separate sitting area, 2 televisions in the room, one on the bedroom side of this divider and one on the sitting area side. All of our cabins on board our Viking ships are just double occupancy, so we don't have triples or quads. But these are wonderful spots for these larger suites if you are traveling with fellow friends. About 47% of our passengers bring another couple along. It's a great place to just have a glass of wine, conversation before you head down to dinner or take in some entertainment on board the vessel. This is our Explorer Suite category, 657 square feet up to 1,024 square feet. There are 10 of these rooms on board, and one of these will be an ADA cabin as well. All right, so that's a quick overview of Mississippi. I hope you enjoyed that. I am going to transition now into talking very briefly about our Viking expeditions and Great Lakes products. So we will move along pretty quickly here. The Great Lakes, there are 5 of them, largest freshwater ecosystem on Earth. We are announced back in January that we will be traveling to the polar caps. We'll be visiting the Arctic and the Antarctic on 2 brand new ships, the Octantis and the Polaris. These are 378 passengers. That's where my confusion in numbers came from. So they're purposefully built, though. When we were looking at a map, where can we take these ships when we're not traveling to the polar caps? And the Great Lakes immediately jumped into our leadership team's mind. It's a space that's only about 10 to 12,000 passengers a year are cruising on right now. And we feel like it's a wonderful spot for our ships. The ships are built to pass through the Welland Canal locks. You can see in this artist rendering, and here's an artist rendering of the ship in Toronto. Toronto is a beautiful city, the 4th largest city in North America. Many people don't realize that. Great theater district, museums, restaurants, sporting events, very international city. We have 4 different itineraries that will be traveling on the Great Lakes. This is a Canadian Discovery. It is a repositioning cruise. So these cruises will be taking place in 2022. That will be when these expedition ships will be sailing for the first time. This repositioning cruise will take place just twice a year. So we will do it in the April timeframe when we're heading into the Great Lakes, and again in the October timeframe when we're leaving the Great Lakes. On sale now for 2022. This features visits to Nova Scotia, PEI, through Quebec, and into Toronto with an overnight there on Lake Ontario, right in Toronto. Then the first of our 3 8-day itineraries is Niagara and the Great Lakes. So Toronto to Milwaukee, 8 days, visiting Niagara Falls, Point Pelee, Detroit, Alpena, Mackinac Island, Traverse City, and into Milwaukee. The next 8-day will then leave from Milwaukee, head back to Mackinac Island, into Lake Huron, into Georgian Bay, visiting Killarney, Little Current, and Parry Sound, which are Ontario, Canada cities, through the Sioux Locks and into Lake Superior, and overnighting at Thunder Bay. And the last itinerary is Undiscovered Great Lakes, Thunder Bay to Milwaukee, 8 days, visiting Duluth, Minnesota, Apostle Islands, Halton, Michigan, through the Sioux Locks to Mackinac Island, and back to Milwaukee. We'll be doing these 8 days throughout the spring and summer and into early fall of 2022. So from that May, June, July, August, September timeframe, we'll be doing these on the Viking Octantis. And here's the ships. So these ships are built for the polar regions. So some of the artist renderings do show that. So if you're interested in that, we do have itineraries available for the Arctic with the Antarctic, and the travel advisors at Mann can help you walk through any of those if you're interested. But again, very modern vessel, very similar to our ocean ships. This is the atrium, beautiful Scandinavian design elements like we talked about. This will be the welcoming desk, guest services here in the atrium. A beautiful aula section is where we'll have lectures, films, experts talking about the area that you're traversing through. This theater screen rotates up to the ceiling, and you'll see in our next picture taken from just outside, artist rendering, imagine from outside looking in. You see now into the aula, that theater, the screen has been raised to the ceiling. The curtains have all been raised, and just outside of it is the fence of terrace, another beautiful spot to take in sights of the areas that you're traveling through. This will be beautiful on the Great Lakes. We'll have an Explorer's Lounge too, looks similar to what we looked at on the Viking Mississippi, right? So very, very much taken from our ocean vessels now. This space is one of my favorites on board. We'll have a deck 5, the top deck, a pool area, the aquavit terrace. This again can be made to be open air or enclosed, a portion of it depending on the weather outside. The pool itself will be heated, and you can see the indoor-outdoor pool here on deck 5. We have a spa on board these expedition vessels. So the Octantis and Polaris will feature a Nordic spa on deck 2. This is the thermal suite here that you can enjoy. There'll be spa services. The thermal suite itself here is complimentary. Spa services will be an additional charge, but we don't believe in high pressure sales. It'll be a very relaxed experience there in the spa. The hangar deck will be utilized. We'll be utilizing some of this even in the Great Lakes region, obviously built for the polar expeditions, but utilized there too between our Zodiac boats, kayaks, some submersibles, and our ribbed boats too. Our operations team is really excited about some potential dive spots on the Great Lakes. There are several shipwrecks in that area. So we do have 2 6-seater submersible submarines that will be available as optional excursions on our Great Lake itineraries, but also kayaks, Zodiacs, and our ribs. We have a great open concept restaurant here too. Looks very similar to what we looked at for Viking, Mississippi. It'll be breakfast, lunch, and dinner served here. A couple of dining options on board. Manfredi's is a specialty restaurant. This is an Italian restaurant, fantastic fresh pasta as well as steaks that come from the Tuscany region. So really great Italian steaks here in Manfredi's. The World Cafe is going to be snacks and meals throughout the day. Again, breakfast, lunch, and dinner in this all-day service area on board. And then it's Scandinavian Deli. Momsen's Norwegian Deli is here with fantastic waffles for breakfast, as well as savory sandwiches, soups, and wonderful desserts throughout the day. And finally, this is my last slide. I'll show you just an image of how we, a preview of what the staterooms look like. We do have several different classes of staterooms all the way up to suites, but they all feature what we're calling a Nordic balcony. So we move the seating towards the window. This window lowers to the halfway point, that white bar you see across, so you can make your cabin open air. Our 2 upper suite categories do have full walkout verandas, our Explorer Suite as well as our Owner Suite. All other cabins will feature this Nordic balcony concept though. So all of our other staterooms will have this. Well, thank you so much. I hope that gives you a great overview of what our Mississippi and our Great Lakes cruising is going to be like. I really welcome you to reach out to the travel advisors at Mann. And Billy, thank you for letting me join you to talk about our project.
Oh, very welcome, Barry. And thank you so much for going over the Mississippi and the Great Lakes region with Viking. Thank you all so much for joining us as well. As Barry had mentioned, Mann Travels is here for you. So please feel free to reach out to your personal travel advisor here with Mann Travels. If you don't happen to have a personal travel advisor, there are many other ways that you can reach out to us on our website at manntravels.com, which is also where you can actually see this video if you did arrive late, or if you have any other friends that might be interested in Viking cruises. You can email our generic email address at vacations@manntravels.com, and you can also call us on our 1-800 number. So I do hope that we truly did help inspire you today. Moving forward, let's dream together. I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Barry.